You plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us for the internet's best daily live program, bringing you the news, interviews, and views you can use for the cannabis community. So proud to be here. Check out our blog at radicalruss.com. We are heard on the 420 Radio Network at 420radio.org. You can also pick us up through iTunes, Stitcher, the TuneIn Radio app, or directly from YouTube and Ustream. There's plenty of places to find us. Just go to 420radio.org for all the information you need. Also want to thank all of our sponsors, and including vapes.buzz. That's vapes.buzz, the short link for portable vaporizers. Now they're upgrading their sponsorship agreement with 420 Radio, and we are proud to have them here as one of our premier sponsors. Get all your vaporization needs at vapes.buzz and use promo code 420radio and get yourself 10% off your order. That's right, vapes.buzz, 420 Radio as your promo code. You can get 10% off. All right, coming up on today's show, we've got all sorts of information for you in the cannabis community, featuring at half past the hour a fantastic TEDx talk from my friend Danica Noble. She's at Noble Idea on Twitter, and she actually asked me for some help and some information to add to this presentation. I'm excited to watch it and see what made it into her presentation. It's a TEDx talk on marijuana legalization. Looking forward to that in our cannabis community chat at half past. Also, at the end of the show, we're going to have a very special call-in guest. We've got the CEO of Indica Vaporizers. You can find them at Indica Vapor on Twitter. He'll be calling in to give us a live report from the beginning of the Champs show. That's going on in Las Vegas today, tomorrow, and Thursday. It is one of the largest counterculture expos, not just marijuana, but all sorts of things going on there at Champs. Indica Vapes will tell us all about that when we get to our Cannabis Chronicles. We're going to put that at the end of the show today, right after the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. Also today, we're going to go into some drug war data mining. I'm going to give you a preview of some of the slides I'll be demonstrating at the High Times Cannabis Cup this weekend. Sunday at 5 p.m., I'm delivering a presentation entitled How Not to Piss Off Your Cannabis Clientele. We'll give you a case study of one of those businesses that did a really good job pissing us off, and we'll show you why it was a bad idea from a financial point of view. Also coming up on the show today in Behind the Headlines, we've got the Oregon legislature once again proposing bills that ignore the will of the people who voted for legalization under Measure 91. Hasn't even gone into effect yet, and they're already trying to rewrite and repeal much of what Measure 91 promised. We'll tell you all about this latest effort, Senate Bill 542, when we get to Behind the Headlines. That, of course, comes right after the 420 Radio News, and in the headlines today, Colorado has issued a state report on the health dangers of using marijuana. We've got a couple of bills in Washington state that propose to divvy up marijuana tax revenues to the cities that accept marijuana tax licenses. We've got Illinois approving its list of growers, producers, and retailers for its nascent medical marijuana program. President Obama's budget may have a nice little catch that allows Washington, D.C. to move forward with its marijuana legalization, and the capital of Alaska has banned indoor marijuana smoking. We'll tell you all about it when we come back from this break. Stay tuned. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest. This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay. Read the Weed Blog today.
Fun.
Oh, hello. I'm Big Daddy, and I want you to join me at the Funky Roller Ring. We're partying hard over here, baby. So stop on by. Check out the funky grooves and shake your booty too.
Don't get in too deep, brother. Don't get in too heavy. Don't get so you can move about whenever you get ready.
Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is an entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Name the time and place, Mr. President. Radical Russ has been prepping for this debate full-time since 2005. The Russ Belville Show.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Russ Belville with your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015. A Colorado state panel warned citizens Monday about the dangers of using marijuana during pregnancy, while driving, and during adolescence and young adulthood. The report, which was commissioned by the state legislature to clarify sometimes contradictory health information about marijuana, also found preliminary evidence to suggest that legalization in the state had resulted in increased hospitalizations, emergency room visits, and poison center calls possibly related to marijuana. Violent criminal behavior is not considered an expected result of marijuana use, and there are inconclusive findings on the permanent effects of marijuana use among adult users. The data on marijuana use rates among youth are contradictory. One 2013 survey found lower high school use than the national average, while another from 2012 and 2013 found higher middle school use than the rest of the country. Medical marijuana has been allowed in Colorado since 2000, and recreational marijuana was legalized in 2014. Under bills introduced in both houses in Olympia, Washington state would share a chunk of its marijuana tax revenue with cities and counties, but only if they allow approved marijuana businesses in their jurisdictions. It's an approach that has worked to some degree in Colorado. Washington's legal pot law, Initiative 502, passed with 56% of the vote in 2012. But in many parts of the state, especially in central and eastern Washington, voters opposed it. Officials in many cities have imposed bans on the pot businesses, seeing little reason to let them operate, and courts have upheld their authority to do so. Since legal marijuana stores opened in Washington last summer, the state has collected $20 million in pot taxes. In Colorado, sales and excise taxes on pot hit $50 million in the first year of legal sales, with about $6 million sent back to local governments. But even in Colorado, 3/4 of the state's 281 cities ban marijuana businesses. In a move that surprised advocates of the medical marijuana program, Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner's administration on Monday announced it would issue most of the coveted licenses to grow and sell the medical product. The move came amid fears Rauner would take months to determine who should be awarded the new state licenses. Patients and medical marijuana advocates lauded the governor for taking swift action on the licenses, allowing the medical marijuana program to gain momentum. Monday's decision to award 18 medical marijuana farming licenses and 52 selling licenses heartened business owners who had been on both lists, but it dismayed others who had spent thousands on the application process and weren't selected. If seeds are planted now, Illinois marijuana could be available by summer, though that's an optimistic timeline that doesn't take bureaucracy and construction into account, said Dan Lin, executive director of Illinois NORML, a marijuana advocacy group. President Barack Obama's nearly $4 trillion federal budget plan unveiled Monday includes fine print that may have major consequences for marijuana legalization in Washington, D.C. Obama's addition of the single word federal to his budget proposal may thwart congressional Republicans trying to block marijuana legalization in the district and would allow the city government to move ahead with local laws regulating and taxing recreational pot. By adding federal to his budget, the president forbids federal funds from being used to enact any law, rule, or regulation to legalize marijuana. That would leave the city free to use local funds to implement pot laws. A White House official explained that the president supports the principle of home rule for Washington, D.C., and believes Congress should not interfere with local decisions. Washington's government is mostly autonomous, but the U.S. Constitution gives Congress final say over the district's laws. When recreational marijuana becomes legal in Alaska later this month, pot smokers in the capital city will not be able to toke up inside bars. Private clubs might be allowed later, but for now, those are off limits too. That's because the Juneau Assembly last night unanimously voted to amend the city's indoor public smoking ban to include pot, despite objections from some marijuana advocates. The statewide initiative voters passed in November already outlaws public consumption of marijuana. The local ordinance makes it explicit that smoking pot is not allowed inside public places in Juneau, where smoking tobacco was already banned. The marijuana initiative goes into effect February 24th. The Assembly has formed a special committee to deal with legal pot issues. It will hold its first meeting later this month. This has been your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2015. I'm Russ Belville. .420 Radio, your ticket to the High Times Cannabis Cups. The International Cannabis Business Conference is coming to the Hyatt Regency Hotel in San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, 2015. Don't miss this exclusive opportunity to hear from the experts on the future of marijuana commerce, including scientists like Dr. Carl Hart, Dr. Amanda Ryman, and Dr. Stanton Peel, policy experts like Ethan Nadelman from Drug Policy Alliance, Anthony Johnson from Oregon's Legalization Campaign, travel author Rick Steves from Washington's Legalization Campaign, and California legalization pioneer Dale Sky Jones. Business experts like Harborside Steve D'Angelo, ArcView Group's Troy Dayton, and UFCW union leader Dan Rush. Cannabis journalists like Ricardo Baca, Steve Bloom, and Doug Fine, and California Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, plus many, many more. Tickets are on sale now at internationalcbc.com, but hurry, last year's conference in Portland, Oregon was a sellout. International Cannabis Business Conference, San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, internationalcbc.com.
NORML stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less.
The Green Cross has been an amazing source of cannabis medicines for my pain management. Whether I need edibles or tinctures or topicals, I'm able to combine the 2 or 3 to give me really successful pain control.
It's the delivery service that Green Cross provides is just incredible. You get your medicine and it's delivered by a person that you trust.
Whether we come to you or you come to us, the Green Cross delivers.
Welcome back, everyone. 14 after the hour. Time for us to go behind the headlines, where the Oregonian reports that Oregon cities ask for a big rewrite of voter-approved legalization law. There are many bills that are being proposed in the Oregon legislature, as we still have until January 1st, 2016, before the first marijuana licensees are allowed to go into effect. July 1st is when the legalization, possession of cultivation and cultivation go into effect. So they've got some time to work on this stuff. And the most recent bill to come down is Senate Bill 542. Senate Bill 542 has been sponsored by State Senator Winters at the request of the League of Oregon Cities, and it does 2 primary things that we are very opposed to. The first one is that it would allow a ban ban on sales and licensing, so basically no growers, no processors, no retailers, it would allow a city or county to ban that simply by a vote of their city council or county commission, in clear violation of what Measure 91 proposed and was supported by 56% of the voters. In Measure 91, they proposed that only a vote of the people can ban a marijuana licensee. This is clearly against the will of the people. And the other option here is they want to make it so that localities can impose their own local taxes on recreational marijuana sales. Now, Measure 91 levies a $35 an ounce tax, a flat tax at production, and this was done specifically to ensure that legal marijuana could compete with the pricing of black market marijuana. Adding local taxes to the marijuana only thwarts the point of the initiative, and that is to undercut or compete with the black market. Now, Scott Winkles, he is the lobbyist for the League of Oregon Cities. He says Measure 91, quote, didn't pass everywhere, end quote, in Oregon, and quote, these communities need to have some say in what is appropriate for them, end quote. Well, Mr. Winkles, we have this little thing called democracy, and the way that it works is that the people of a state vote on something, and if a majority of them support it, then it passes. To say that it didn't pass everywhere in Oregon is a non sequitur. It was a statewide ballot initiative. It passed everywhere in Oregon. The entire state supported it. These folks want to look at the votes of individual districts or individual counties and say, well, this county didn't choose it, therefore this county shouldn't have to abide by the law. And that's not the way our democracy works. Furthermore, Mr. Winkles, if you really think that these localities need to have some say in what's appropriate for them, then why do you fear putting a vote of the people on the ballot to determine whether or not they want to ban these marijuana licensees? If indeed these communities want to have some say, then a vote of their people at a general election is that community having some say. No. What the League of Oregon Cities wants is to be able to have a little tiny number of county commissioners or city councilmen who are easily swayed by big moneyed interests and powerful interests to go against the will of the people. They're afraid, Winkles is afraid, that a lot of these cities, if they put it up to a vote, they would lose. And they don't like those kind of odds. They want to game the system so they can pull all their strings, all of that influence that they've built up politically over the years to get their way in banning marijuana businesses. Now, Rob Bovet is with the Association of Oregon Counties. He says that local taxes should keep retail prices, quote, at or below the legalized black market, end quote. Well, here's the thing. If you have local taxes, you set up all sorts of micro black markets all over the state. If Portland is taxing at 10%, and then Linton just up the street isn't taxing at all, you give incentive for Portlanders to drive to the small town that doesn't tax at 10%. A statewide $35 an ounce tax is a low tax. It's the lowest tax proposed on marijuana in the 4 states that have legalized it, and keeping it as a consistent tax throughout the state is what is best needed to maintain that competition with the black market. The thing that's most ironic about all of this is that Measure 91's text regarding local bans and regarding local taxation is copied damn near word for word from our current alcohol laws. And you don't see any of these localities calling on local elections to be able to, local city councils to be able to ban alcohol establishments. You don't see Pendleton calling for a 10% tax on alcohol to deal with all the costs of the drunken cowboys at the Pendleton Roundup every year. You don't see Portland asking for a special 10% alcohol tax to deal with shutting down Old Town and closing all the streets to deal with all the pissing drunks and the fighting drunks and the puking drunks that happen every weekend. weekend. You don't see any town calling for a local 10% tax on cigarettes to deal with the costs of all the cigarette butts that are left over, littered all over the place in those particular towns. It is ridiculous to be treating marijuana any differently than alcohol or tobacco, and most specifically when 56.1% of the people, the greatest margin of support in any of the 4 legal states, and greater support than medical marijuana got in Oregon, California, or Colorado, it's time to implement 91 as written.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking.
I guess that would kind of be a mini rant, wouldn't it? Can you believe the arrogance of these people? It's just remarkable to me that the people would spoke quite plainly on election day that they supported the way Measure 91 was written, and especially in the context of rejecting legalization 2 years prior to that because they didn't like how it was written. The audacity of these people.
420 Radio, turning red states and blue states green. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. Connect with 420radio.org through social media, on Twitter at 420radio.org, and our Facebook page at 420radio.org. Follow us and like us today. You'll be glad you did.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back, everyone. 22 and a half after the hour. Today in the Data Mines, going to give you a preview of a presentation that I'm delivering this Sunday at 5 p.m. at the National Orange Center, the site of the High Times Southern California Cannabis Cup. And the presentation is entitled How Not to Piss Off Your Cannabusiness Clientele. And I'll be giving 5 examples from recent history of businesses or nonprofits that ignorantly offended the cannabis community to their own detriment. And I want to give this presentation as a way of calling out those businesses that have offended us and warning the future businesses how they need to proceed if they don't wish to piss off the community. Today, we're going to take a look at the business called Canna Brands. Now, Canna Brands garnered my attention in October of 2014 in a piece in the New York Times, October 3rd it was, when they profiled these 2 young women that were behind Canna Brands. And the quote that caught my eye was, "We're weeding out the stoners. We want to show the world that normal, professional, successful people consume cannabis." End quote. Now, I have no problem with marketing cannabis toward professionals, toward the non-traditional cannabis consuming audience, but there's no reason you need to do that by denigrating the cannabis consumers who currently exist. I mean, can you imagine McDonald's trying a marketing campaign of "We're weeding out the fatties. We want to show the world that normal, healthy, attractive people consume cheeseburgers"? I mean, it would just be so offensive, they wouldn't even think of doing that. But a lot of times, these people that are entering the cannabis world either are ignorant of or purposefully working against their knowledge of the cannabis community. It's not like selling cheeseburgers. We have a culture, we have a history, we have a status and an identity as cannabis consumers, and you are fighting against that if you use these anti-stoner type marketing techniques. And not only that, you're cutting your own throat as a business. There's a little thing called the Pareto rule that is talked about a lot in economics, and it states that 80% of the consumption is driven by 20% of the consumers. That is, 1 out of 5 stoners is going to smoke 4 out of 5 nugs of the weed, right? And I have some data for you to show you exactly what this means. First of all, when we are talking about the distribution of cannabis consumers in this country, what we find is that young people are overwhelmingly the majority of cannabis consumers. The chart that I've got on the screen divides people up, and this is information from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health for 2013. The first bar graph is ages 21 to 25, people in that age group. The next is 26 to 29. Then we go from 30 to 35. And then we go from 30 to 34, excuse me. And then 35 to 49 and 50 to 64. Then everybody over age 64. And some important things to note about this. Also, the bars are color coded. People that use 1 to 11 days a year are the lightest green. People that use 300 to 365 days a year are the darkest green. So what we find from this information is that cannabis consumers in their 20s number more than all cannabis consumers from 30 to 50. So that's important to understand. You're talking about a younger demographic. It's also important to notice that cannabis consumers aged 21 to 25 who consume 300 to 365 days a year number more than all cannabis consumers over age 65. So this idea that you want to market to the grandmas and to the professionals, people that are older, more in their 40s or 50s, is not necessarily a bad idea, but it ignores your base. It ignores that 20% that the Pareto rule states are going to be consuming most of your product. You're offending one of your best customers in order to attract an infrequent customer, and it makes no logical business sense. Another way to look at this is to combine all of the people aged 21 and older based on how often they consume marijuana. And what we find is that infrequent consumers, 1 to 11 days a year, number about 5.5 million. Frequent consumers, 100 to 365 days a year, those last 2 bars, number about 8.8 million. So we got far more people on the heavy consumption side that we'll want to market to if we're a smart business than on the lighter consumption side. Now, let's assume that each one of these consumers in a given day consumes a gram of marijuana. So for the 1 to 11 days a year, those people, those 5.5 million, might be consuming as little as a gram in a year to 11 grams in a year. Whereas the far side, the dark green, they're going to be consuming 300 to 365 grams in a year. If we look at that, we find that the people who consume over 100 days a year absolutely dominate the consumption of marijuana. In fact, for every one consumer you piss off in those 2 dark green bars, you need to cultivate another 6 to 11 of the lighter green consumers to make up for their consumption. And that's assuming everyone consumes a gram, which isn't true. It's really closer to about 20 to 1. 420 Radio. Tune in, turn on, get highly educated. Growing plants indoors can be a rewarding hobby, but electricity bills can go through the roof. Then you have to cool down all those big hot lights. It can drive a grower insane. With Lush LED lighting, you can solve many of these issues and double your rewards. Matt and his scientists have developed the perfect light for flowering plants with far less cost and heat. And the results? Very effective. Check out LushLEDlighting.com right now.
Despite strong public support for medical cannabis, decriminalization, and legalization in Georgia, the state spends $121 million every year to arrest, prosecute, and imprison Georgians for simple possession. Each year, the state of Georgia spends less on driver services, agriculture, and forestry combined. What else can $121 million a year do in Georgia? With that much money, the state could hire and keep 3,000 more teachers, improve roads and bridges, provide tax relief for small businesses, repair aging sewage systems, or lower taxes. But right now, that's millions of dollars of your tax money wasted on failed enforcement. Tell your representative you're tired of wasteful spending and ask them to end cannabis prohibition. Join the conversation at www.peachtreenormal.org. Peachtree Normal is a proud affiliate of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com. The cannabis community is a diverse set of people from all walks of life, conservative and liberal, black and white, straight and gay, rich and poor, and everyone in between. Learn more about the people we are freeing from adult marijuana prohibition in our Cannabis Community Chat.
On September 29th, 2011, Daisy Brown was in her California mountain home. She was cuddling her 14-month-old and nursing her brand new, tiny 3-week-old newborn. Early that morning, she heard what sounded like someone breaking into her home. And a few moments later, she was surrounded by armed police officers who violently stripped her children from her embrace and took them away. And when I was a new mom, nursing my own tiny baby, I heard an audio recording of that raid, and it devastated me. And when I found out it was over medical marijuana, legal in her state, and that it took her years to get her children back, I was destroyed, and I wanted to do something. Now, I may have been slightly hormonal or emotional, having just had a baby, but her desperate pleas to the police to bring back her babies haunted me, and I had to do something. And so I told my husband that I intended to become a pot activist, and he was not thrilled. But I started small, creating a space for women to get together and share their stories and perspectives, and then to support and empower each other, and ultimately it became a political platform for engaging in democracy, so that our voices, women's voices, became part of marijuana policy. And it turns out that the war on drugs, and specifically the prohibition of marijuana, is really bad for children. And it's really bad for families and communities and health and democracy. And now I work with a group of remarkable women who are dedicated to ending marijuana's prohibition. And we are a part of a larger network of mainstream, professional American women. And we believe that the costs of prohibition by far outweigh any consequences from marijuana's use. Now, women played an important role in bringing about alcohol prohibition. But you might not know that they also played an important role in ending alcohol prohibition. Women were disillusioned. Prohibition didn't work. It hadn't stopped anyone from drinking. It made hypocrites out of the politicians and fueled crime, violence, and black markets. Youth had ever-increasing access. And so the women organized themselves, marching, speaking, writing, and ultimately holding their politicians accountable. And in 4 years, their organizations had spread like wildflowers across the United States, and prohibition was repealed. Youth drinking dropped by 50% right away. Well, some things never change. And we share the same concerns with Prohibition that they did. And so we have modeled our organizations, in part, off of theirs. You see, you can't win a war on drugs. And the prohibition of marijuana has failed by every conceivable measure. It's failed on its own terms because despite ever-increasing, nearly limitless budgets and breathtakingly long sentences, usage hasn't gone down, abuse rates haven't changed, demand hasn't decreased, and it's failed in terms of human rights as well, because it's not just a few kingpins we're sending to jail. We arrest someone every 37 seconds for marijuana in this country, and our prisons are bursting. And this is bad for families and children because there is a direct trade-off between money for schools and money for prisons. California spends more on prisons than schools, more on prisoners than school children, and they're not alone. The war on drugs and its largest component, the prohibition of marijuana, is bad for communities because it funnels military training and military weapons to our local police. We tell them they are fighting a war in our backyards. And just as with any war, there are tragic, innocent victims. It costs us $3.5 billion to enforce the marijuana laws, but that doesn't even begin to take in the tremendous costs of having someone absent from the home. Nearly 4 million children have a parent in jail right now. It's become so common that Sesame Street has children singing about it. And it's worse than all that. Marijuana's prohibition fails in terms of social justice as well, because it's not a cross-section of users who go to prison. It is demonstrably and drastically racist. African Americans make up 12% of marijuana users, but more than 70% of those doing time. By the age of 23, half of all African American males will have been arrested. And like all arrests, most are for nonviolent drug offenses, and most of those for small amounts of marijuana. In the toughest police communities, 1 in 3 people have a felony drug conviction, and a felony is a very deep hole to get out of. You'll probably lose your job, and it will be harder to get a new one. You'll probably lose where you live, it will be harder to find a new place. You'll lose your money for school, and in many states you'll lose the right to vote. And it's forever, it never gets better. Prohibition hasn't just failed, it has backfired, just as it did under alcohol. Marijuana is cheaper and stronger, and children have been reporting for decades that it's easier to get than alcohol. We spend $1,000 a minute on pot in this country, and right now it's going to black markets and drug dealers who are only too happy to sell to our children. While Prohibition hasn't stopped anybody from using cannabis, nearly half the country tries it. It has virtually eliminated science and research. But it hasn't always been this way. Cannabis sativa is older than the political controversy that surrounds it now. There are words for it in dead languages. It's found in ancient burial sites around the world. And our bodies are lined with cannabis receptors. The plant produces over 100 cannabinoids that interact synergistically with those receptors, modulating mood, nausea, pain, inflammation, neurogenesis, and probably a lot more. The plant and humans share the same footprint on Earth. Surely the species have evolved together. And even in our own society, it hasn't always been so disfavored. Cannabis sativa came over with the settlers to Jamestown, Virginia. We wrote the Declaration of Independence on it. We made our money out of it. We paid our taxes with it. And it was widely available in drugstores and pharmacies for 100 years. Prohibition came in 2 waves of racist hysteria. The first, reefer madness in the 1930s, where a familiar medicine, cannabis, got a new name, marijuana, and with it a new and fictional identity as a dangerous drug, abused by African Americans and Hispanics, so dangerous that a single joint could send you into a murderous rage or cause your immediate death. Real prohibition came with Nixon. He declared it public enemy #1, and his war on drugs was embodied in the Controlled Substances Act. That law classifies drugs into 5 categories. Marijuana is in the top, most restricted category, Schedule 1. It's defined as having no medical uses, a high potential for abuse, and to be so dangerous that it can't even be used under a doctor's supervision in the hospital. The law ranks marijuana alongside of PCP and heroin and considers it more dangerous than methamphetamines and cocaine. Marijuana was placed in Schedule 1 without any evidence it belongs there, and it has remained in Schedule 1 despite evidence it doesn't fit any of the criteria. Millions of people have used it for thousands of years with no fatalities. There is no lethal dose, and that makes it uniquely safe as a medicine. And it has a low potential for abuse because relatively few people develop dependence, and there is even a debate as to whether there are any physically addicting properties. But the medical research has been suppressed. Because marijuana is a Schedule 1 drug, multiple government agencies must approve its research. This includes the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and the National Institutes of Drug Abuse. Two agencies that statutorily see marijuana as a dangerous drug with no medical benefits. And so it won't surprise you that they rarely approve of medical research into the benefits. And this is a problem because we have good evidence, mostly research from other countries, which the DEA will not consider, and animal studies that suggest that cannabis and the cannabinoid system have important therapeutic and beneficial roles to play in some difficult to treat and awful diseases. I'm talking about Alzheimer's, autism, ALS, arthritis, diabetes, Crohn's, multiple sclerosis, post-traumatic stress disorder, cancer. And while I'm not saying marijuana is a panacea or a cure for any disease, I'm saying that prohibition censors the science, and we are left with a flat earth policy that is ruinously expensive, embarrassingly ineffective, racist, harmful, and blocks information. Almost any approach would be better. And something better came in 2012, when Washington and Colorado voted to tax and regulate marijuana. I was the target demographic in both these campaigns. A woman, 25 to 45, probably a mother, probably not a cannabis user. In Washington, Allison Holcomb and her staff, made up almost entirely of women, wrote the law for soccer moms. It had safety built in and addressed all the sticking points. Tough on drug driving, strict underage penalties, no home grows, and taxes with funds earmarked for education and research. In the ads they ran, we see a professional woman around 40 who sits down at a coffee shop and says, "I'm not interested in pot, but I have serious concerns about prohibition, and it's time for a new approach." It worked. It passed. I voted for it, and I joined the campaign. And regulation is beginning to work. While it's still preliminary, we have the most information about Colorado. They have collected $35 million in taxes and fees. They've saved millions more by eliminating marijuana arrests and prosecutions. They've added 10,000 jobs. Violent crime is down. The murder rate is down by half in Denver. Prescription pain pill overdoses are down. Car accidents are down. And Colorado is the only state in the nation where teen use is decreasing. These are measures of success. Not how many people did we arrest, how many people did we send to prison, and that's how we measure it now. Regulation is working, but it's not working for everyone. In the states where it's legal, entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry don't have the same advantages as other American business. Because marijuana remains a Schedule 1 drug, they are forced into an all-cash business. No loans, no bank accounts, no credit cards, and everyone knows they're an all-cash business. No protection for their intellectual property, no business deductions, and at any moment, the federal government, or just some district attorney, can decide to enforce some irrational and unjust laws, and it would all disappear. And still, people are making it, and women are playing a big role. In Washington, the Marijuana Business Association's Women's Alliance is only 6 months old. It has 250 members, including over 100 small businesses owned by women. By some estimates, this is a $40 billion industry that's coming online. Women are first to the table, and they're leaning in. But it's still risky business, because people are losing their jobs for drug tests and drug arrests. Parents are losing their children, and some people, lots of people, are going to prison and losing everything. Child Protective Services is not prepared for responsible adult use. Without allegations of neglect or abuse, parents are losing their children for their mere status as marijuana patients or consumers. And it's stories like these, stories like Daisy Brown's that our organization collects, and they keep coming, and they are powerful. But they're not all sad. Mormon moms. You might be familiar with the apparent benefit that cannabis has on a rare and otherwise lethal form of epilepsy called Dravet syndrome. Parents of these children spend years in and out of hospitals giving their children mountains of drugs, the side effects of brain damage and organ failure. Don't work well to stop the seizures that keep coming, hundreds during the day and hundreds during the night. The children begin to lose their ability to walk and to talk and to grow, and then you're just hoping they're going to make it through the night. And as these stories go, these parents get sent home from the hospital for the last time, their children to die, Western medicine having utterly failed them. And as a last resort, as a Hail Mary Jane, they find that a few drops of non-psychoactive cannabis extract seemingly stops the seizures. These children find peace in their bodies and minds for the first time, and these parents get their children back. Women in Utah convinced their legislators to allow parents of children with epilepsy to treat them with these non-psychoactive cannabis extracts. And it sailed through the legislature. Who would have thought? Utah, my home state, progressive on marijuana. It's the women. And just like they did in Utah, they're organizing in all the other states that don't yet have medical marijuana laws on the books. And it's working. Because politicians are responding differently to arguments against prohibition when they come from women and parents advocating for their children and their families. Women are the game changers, and they are ending prohibition again. 33 states have medical marijuana laws on the books, or some form of liberalized marijuana laws, and fully 85% of Americans poll in favor of medical marijuana, making it the single most popular issue. And all the progress in the states and all the popular support is not enough to get the federal position to evolve. We have been stuck on flat earth with a policy that has failed. The last 40 years have seen the fastest paced medical advancements in history, and one of history's most therapeutic compounds has been left out. And we have been left without the information we need to make smart choices as policymakers, as physicians, as parents, and as a democracy. So I urge you to push past the stereotypes, free the research, free the science, and join me on the round earth.
That's Danica Noble with her TEDx talk on ending marijuana prohibition. I got to do a little bit of consulting with Danica on that speech. You could probably tell some of the parts that had a very radical Russ sound to them. I picked out a couple of places there myself. Stay tuned, folks. We got the anti-drug public service announcement of the day coming up next. And following that, we're going to reach out to the CEO of Indica Vapes. He's currently at the Champs Show in Vegas. We'll see if we can get a live report from the floor. Otherwise, we'll move on to a radical rant that will start next or in hour 2. Tragic 911 call to tell you about that once again shows why many of us don't trust police. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show. We're back right after this.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the world's voice of marijuana legalization.
You know Herb Thrasher from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. Now get ready for Herb Age Designs for the proud cannabis consumer. Herb Age Designs, lifestyle gear for the 420 friendly. Herb Age Designs, we've got Frisbee golf discs and durable hemp gear. Herb Age Designs, we've got shot glasses, drinking glasses, coffee mugs, and beer cozies. Check us out on Facebook and online at herbagedesigns.com. And follow Herb Age and Herb Thrasher on Twitter.
In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
Are marijuana smokers in favor of legalizing meth? What do you think?
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org. Mark Twain once said that when there's a gold rush, it's a good time to be in the pick and shovel business. Today we look at the rapidly evolving markets in the marijuana green rush in our Canna Business Chronicles.
Welcome back, everyone. 51 after the hour, and today the Champs Show begins in Las Vegas. It's the world's largest countercultural business expo. They hold these all over the country. I got to attend one in Denver, Colorado before one of the Cannabis Cups, and it was quite an eye-opener. You have a lot of glass vendors there, as well as many other folks. And we're reaching out to Michael Freelander. He's the CEO of Indica Vapes. Maybe we can get a live coverage spot here from the Champs floor. Michael, are you on the line?
Hello.
Hi, Michael. Russ Belville from the 420 Radio Show. One of your spokespeople said I should reach out to you, see if you could give us a little flavor of the Champs Show going on in Vegas today.
Oh, certainly. Good. Well, here I'm watching the show at this, right in this moment, and it's been quite active. Actually, over the past 3 years, it's probably one of the most active shows I've seen thus far. The industry has been growing and maturing. As I walked in today, it was more like a consumer electronics show than anything else. I think it's gained itself from a little bit of adolescence to a little bit more maturity than anything else. A lot of activity. We've been seeing, instead of just glass pipes, we've been seeing a lot of technology coming along, and really beautiful packaging, great presentation, and great new products being brought to the market.
That's fantastic news. Now, Michael, where is the event being held there in Las Vegas?
This is over in Las Vegas, Nevada, over at the convention center.
Oh, okay, the Vegas Convention Center. Fantastic. Any idea on how many people are expected to attend over the 3 days?
It's hard for me to tell. I don't have the exact number. I would say well over 7,000 to 8,000 that I'm seeing right in here at this point.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you're the CEO of Indica Vaporizers. We did a review of the Indica Vaporizer. That's a fantastic handheld herbal vape. It kind of looks like a Zippo lighter on steroids. How has your business been over the past couple years as legalization unfolds?
Well, we introduced the Indica over the past, we've been branding it and developing it for the market for well over a year, but we brought it to the market on April 16th in Denver. And it has been growing rapidly. Our sales have been fairly significant. I'd say that we're selling close to around 3,000, 4,000 a month.
Oh, fantastic.
And things are taking off. It's been exceptional.
Yeah, I recall that. The Cannabis Cup in Denver, you guys had the big double booth setup. We were right next to each other. We were neighbors there. That's when I first became aware of Indica. And one of the things that I appreciate about your company, Michael, is that you seem to have a willingness to want to give back to the movement that helped create your industry. Tell us about Indica's support of legalization and activism in the marijuana movement.
In the music, I'm sorry, I lost a little bit with the noise in the background.
Oh, I was just saying, your company does a good job of helping to support those of us who are fighting for legalization in other places. Can you tell us about that, your philanthropy with the company?
Well, I'm trying to pick up everything here, but one of the things we've been involved with is in the hemp industry. We've been very active in starting up some projects over in Kentucky, and we started up a grouping doing some tri-cropping with Doug Fine, and we were now one of the groupings, I think, over 120 new companies that are now starting to do actually growth of hemp and the processing of hemp with the legalization of hemp nationally, and with the laws that have opened up. There's great opportunities. It's not just limited to producing hemp, but what byproducts there are. And we're looking into technology leading into the full development of batteries and superconductors, what opportunities there are in the future. I'm not sure if I quite answered because I was in the midst of tons of noise. My apologies.
No, that's fantastic. In fact, Doug Fine is a good friend of the show and a frequent contributor to our network. So it's good to hear that you're working with activists like Doug and that you're diversifying into the hemp side of things, which I truly think is where the big money is eventually going to end up in America, is in the processing and production of hemp goods. We're speaking to Michael Freelander from the Indica Vaporizer Company. You can follow them on Twitter at Indica Vapes. And which booth, do you have a booth number, directions you can give folks if they're going to Champs, if they want to find you?
We certainly do. We are in booth 333, and we'll be here straight through Thursday at 6 o'clock. Anyone that's in the industry, there's a business-to-business industry here on show, but anyone is welcome to stop by. We'd love to show you what we're working on. Currently, we do have a convection vape that we're introducing to the market starting off in April, and we also have a miniature unit that we'll be bringing to the market somewhat a little bit later on. It's a miniature version of our existing conduction-based vape, which hopefully will be a game changer as well.
Fantastic. And I've found as far as herbal vaporizer products go, the Indica is, right up there, top 3 of the best out there. What about the vaporization of concentrates? Do you have products in plans for concentrates?
I think down the road, the one product that we have that's for convection has the possibility of working with oils and waxes. And we're working on what we're going to do to add to the item to make it a little bit easier. This, as I said, it's under development, but I think come April or May, that unit will be available for that purpose. It's a little bit more pricey, but we're definitely going to be in that realm. Oils and waxes, as things continue to be improved upon with CO2 processing, that's the direction we want to go. I tend to be a purist and move away from butanol. So as long as we can try to keep things as quality goes, and as you said, our product is recognized as a quality item. We want to make sure people are also using quality products with our product that we generate, then I'm fine with it. And we'll direct them in that same direction the same process that we can.
That's fantastic. Michael Freelander, CEO of Indica Vapes. I appreciate you taking the call on really incredibly short notice and doing a fantastic job. Tell folks about any websites or Facebook stuff they need to know if they want to get a hold of you.
Feel free to connect on www.indica2.com. And the Facebook-wise, boy, I don't know the direction, but I think just look under Indica Vaporizer, and you should be able to find it directly there on Facebook.
All right. Thanks so much, Michael. Have a good time at the Champ Show, and good luck to everything that you're proposing.
Thank you so much. You guys take care.
All right. Champ Show going on the next 3 days at the Vegas Convention Center. Check it out if you get the chance. It will be a real eye-opener for you. That's all the time we got here for Hour 1, but stay tuned. Hour 2 is next with the tale of a tragic 911 call that once again shows how our militarized police and the culture of policing, especially in black neighborhoods, has taken, once again, a devastating turn. Plus, we've got our daily Toker Tunes. Electric Bob will be bringing us some electronic music for the day. And we'll take your calls at 971-533-7111. For everyone here at 420radio.org, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes.